Hey, how are you this fine Wednesday? I welcome to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman. I'm a professional speaker who ironically has a speech impediment. I specialize in speaking to junior high and high school students about kindness, creativity, confidence, and adventure. And today I'm thrilled to have an amazing guest who will delight you with both his insights and his humor and just his winning personality. His name is Dennis Duran. Let me tell you a little about Dennis. And I'll be reading this because I didn't memorize his bio, but I could have, but I didn't. So I'll be reading. Dennis Duran, a leading expert in the construction industry with more than 30 years experience, is the author of the highly praised book, Soft as Steel, which focuses on the vital importance of developing and valuing soft skills. Dennis has dedicated himself to providing business leaders in all industries with the tools to be successful, not just in business, but in life and relationships. He delivers an inspirational message with humor, which you are going to enjoy, and dynamic and energy, motivating his audience to act and make a change. Dennis brings a multifaceted perspective to discuss the core issues affecting our industries, issues related to relationships, processes, continuous improvements in ethics and integrity. He has been a sought after speaker who combines his long and varied experience in entertaining and motivating style presentation on a wide variety of topics that affect us all. Without further ado, or if you want to have a little ado, don't make it too much ado. Dennis Duran. Hey! Hey, Dennis.
Do I talk now?
Do you want to write a book someday?
No, I do not want to write a book someday. And I have to say that I'm sorry, I fell asleep halfway through my introduction. So whatever you said, I missed most of it. But thank you very much for that. It's really great to be with you. You're a friend. I've known you for a while. You've known me, and I think we kind of like each other, probably because we believe in a lot of the same things in life. So really glad to be here.
I value that we believe in the same things. That you're a kind, very talented person, and that you have a great sense of humor, and that you at the same time put up with my marginal sense of humor, which
It is marginal. Yeah, I would have to say that. Yeah.
so speaking of your book,
Yeah.
soft as steel.
Mm-hmm.
Soft as steel.
Soft as steel. Look at that. These are only two copies in circulation right here. That's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Uh, Dennis, you know steel isn't soft, don't you?
Oh, it isn't? Here, then let me. I'm going to change the title of my book. It's now called Soft. Yeah. So
Perfect.
for those of you who are viewing this either now or sometime in the future, it's going to be like this for most of the hour. But but I will be able to turn even every humorous moment into a nugget of useful information, I hope. And it begins with me responding to Jason's question about steel. And that would be to tell you that the reason why the book is titled Soft as Steel. Um, one of the things that I've been interested in for a long time, in primarily in the construction industry, but it really applies to any business enterprise or any enterprise of any sort, community, charitable, or otherwise, is people's qualities, what people are like, and how important that is to being both successful, but also in the long run, also providing opportunity to be happier. So I've been interested in the people side of the industry that I've been in for a long time. And so I finally decided, and I won't give you all the details, but I finally decided and pulled the trigger to write the book that I wrote, which was published in December 2019, so just 2 years ago. And I was having a conversation with someone who is a very close friend. I don't think he would have me edit this thought out. And he's also my mentor. His name is Steve Farber. Steve is a highly recognized leadership authority. I've written several books. I subscribe very strongly to his tenets of leadership. And he and I were having a conversation with regards to this book. And at the end of the conversation, which was about 45 minutes in length, where he was commenting on different things I talked about in terms of how I was going to structure the book. As I was about to say goodbye, I said, well, I appreciate your input. He said, well, hold on a second. I said, what's up? He said, I have a title for your book. And the title he offered was Soft as Steel. And the analogy there, if that's the right term, is that steel is essential to the building of a wide range of different types of structures for different purposes, things that people live in, work in, et cetera, et cetera. And steel provides, a solid framework for a long-standing use of a facility or a building. My view about soft skills, when I talk about soft skills, I describe those as being a person's qualities, attributes, a manifestation of their personal values. It's not how they do what they do. It's how they are when they're doing it. It's expressing by using communication, which is a valuable tool to be able to let people know who they are, and what, why that person they're trying to get to know would want to have, and here's the connection to steel, a long-term relationship. So steel and soft skills parallel structures and relationships. And that's how I arrived at soft as steel. I like to say there's nothing soft about soft skills, because they're very difficult for some people to recognize, particularly in themselves. And as we were thinking about having this interview, one of the thoughts that I had about what we could talk about in this interview was, and I wrote it in a note to you. I said, the person you understand least about may be you. So learning as much as you can about yourself, others may already know more than you know about you. So again, this notion of soft skills, your qualities, that's how I got to soft as steel. I know that's not as funny as your line, but that's the explanation.
I love this. We didn't rehearse this, and you set me up perfectly for what I'm going to ask you next. Thank you.
Well, I'm doing all I can.
So will you turn to page 76 of your book?
Yes, I can. Okay.
And will you read it? It all starts with you. And anyone listening who has Dennis's book, please read along too.
Yeah. So this,
But we won't hear you reading because Dennis will be reading. But
right? Yeah. I'm just going to start here and read the rest of the book, and then whenever the hour is up, you can just turn it off. Okay.
Okay, that'll be simple.
I will use this opportunity to say that this is in the part of the book that is titled "Nuts, Bolts, and Some Great Thoughts." And these thoughts, and you've asked me to read one of them, were inspired by either something that I gleaned from the 36 conversations I had with people across the industry, or they made the point about something like "It all starts with you." And so I wrote down the captions. In this case, "All starts with you." And I think I had probably about 70 of these thoughts. And then I selected 52 of them, one per week. And if anybody's interested in hearing more of these, you can hear each one of these on a weekly basis and by subscribing on my website. And there's an audio recording of every one of these. So what you would hear if you click the button for number 2, it all starts with you, is something like this. It's really simple, but at the same time, so hard to understand. If you want to grow and succeed in our industry and in your personal life, you must understand yourself. This isn't about what you know. It's about knowing you. What are your qualities? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What are you feeling? The last question is the one we are often least tuned into. This question is talking about emotions. Emotions are part of all of us. Our brains are wired to give emotion the upper hand over rational thinking. There's a lot of research that tells us that many of us are controlled by our emotions. Our ability to recognize what we are feeling throughout our day, and more importantly, what we do to manage those feelings, is a must. Are you aware of your emotions? Are you aware of the emotions of others? So, yeah, that was a thought. And I think it's a huge, I think that if I had to say, out of what I get asked about and what I focus on increasingly in the conversations I have with people, whether I'm working as a chair of a group or doing coaching work, dealing with this, and what I'm touching on, or I'm touching on the edges of the body of knowledge around the subject of emotional intelligence, and that's really what that is addressing. And this whole idea that emotions play a fundamental, critical, and difference-making role in how we view every day that we experience in our lives. And so again, having this understanding of self, and then also having both the interest and the ability to understand others. And I'm talking specifically about how they're feeling, about their emotions at a point in time, is a hugely important area of understanding to develop.
So I see. I mean, you didn't hire me to ask you the easy question, so I'm not going to. So I see like why like psychologists and counselors deal with emotions, but how does it relate to a nuts and bolts profession like the construction industry? Isn't that all about pounding nails? And I mean, that's all about work, right? What do emotions have to do with it?
Well, yeah, as I said, but just to emphasize it, the practical reality is it has to do with how our brain is structured. Again, there's a portion of our brain. It's referred to in general terms. I'm not a brain scientist, but I can explain a couple of things. It's called the limbic system. And so, as we receive the electrical signals from everything that we see, hear, feel, touch, etc., those all come into our brain as electric impulses at the top of at the back of our neck, and they go through the first part of the brain. They move through is the limbic system, and that's why I say in my nugget that we are controlled by our emotions. And the degree to which we're controlled by them is a function of first appreciating that is a reality. That is a fact. It is not some crazy psychologist or nut job's thought process. That is a fact about how our brain works. And if we recognize that, then we also have to have the willingness and the interest to try to do something about it. And the first step in doing something about it is to be aware of them, be aware of what we're feeling as we go through every day that we experience, and knowing it again in our construction world. The example I use when I teach project management classes is to say, if you need to go over and talk to an owner's representative on a job site about a very difficult change order. A change order is basically a document that says something is different than what we thought it was going to be, and it's going to cost you more money. That's basically what a change order is. So, and if you see that person across the job site, and all you can see at a distance is a profile, and you see that person doing like this, and the other person they're talking to, this would probably not be a good time to walk up and talk to them, because you could discern from observing their behavior that they're not necessarily in a positive frame of mind to hear you talk about a change order. So again, that's an example of being aware of the other person. But before you can do that, you have to develop some skill and ability to be aware of your emotions so that you can try to manage them. And one emotion at that point might be, you might be just really upset because this situation was what should not have been a problem. We should not have been had our crew have to stop working, or our team, or whatever you might call it, but we did, and that's costing me money. So I need to get in this guy's face and get this taken care of right away. So right away, your emotions are coming into it because you're a little pissed.
Yeah,
So
it's escalating inside of you.
exactly. So again, it doesn't matter what industry, it doesn't matter where you are. We feel things all the time. And some of the feelings are joyous feelings. We may feel anxious, or maybe feel fear. There's a whole range of feelings and emotions that every person experiences every day in their waking hours, and some carry it right into their sleeping hours as well. But the point is, emotions are just a fundamental part of who every person is. Doesn't matter what industry.
So what could an emotion, using the same example, what might an emotionally intelligent
Well, if he knew he was
response to that conversation be? Yeah.
well, if he was focused on himself, and he was angry or upset, which is an emotion, because he had to deal with this change, which was causing a crew to stand by because it was a situation that had to be dealt with immediately. He's obviously, he's not happy, and so he could go charge it up to that site representative and just wave a change order in their face. Say, you got to do something about this right now. My guys are standing still. I'm going to back charge you for this. Or he might recognize, well, I'm pissed off. Yeah, they're sitting, but let me just cool down a little bit. Let me just take a moment, because if I go over there with a tense, irritated demeanor, the chances of that person even listening to me are immediately cut in half, if not more. So I just need to let me go take a look at a couple of emails, or let me go back over to the truck and finish the explanation and justification for this change, rather than just walk up with a piece of paper that's got $50,000 on it. Say, that's the value of this change. I'll get you the details later. So again, all that kind of that processing of both feelings and facts. And again, everybody knows that decisions are not purely based on facts. So when you align it with the decision-making process, you got to let emotions come into it, because again, if you're upset, particularly if they're, again, negative emotions, if you're upset, your judgment immediately is clouded. Immediately.
If you're upset, your judgment is immediately clouded.
Yeah. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Now, it may not be severe, but the bottom line is your emotions are affecting you. So again, don't go running over to that guy. Go charging up to him. And again, if you're fine, and you saw that same guy that we've been talking about for the last couple minutes across that job site, and you could see at a distance that he was having a heated conversation with another person, you need to take note of that, and what you need to do in order to have the opportunity to be able to manage your relationship with that person. You need not to go address them right now. Let them get done with whatever's going on, and then when either a few minutes later or maybe an hour later, you check out and see where they are and what's going on with them. If they look like they've calmed down and they're refocused on their routine, that would be the time to go talk to them. So again, it's happening around us all the time, and most of us, frankly, just the idea of me saying, you have to be concerned about how you're feeling and your emotions. People in the construction industry and other hard industries will just say that's not, we got to get, excuse my French, we got to get shit done. I mean, don't talk about, we got to get stuff done. If we don't get stuff done, I will be emotional. Yeah, I'll be emotional and firing people. Can't do it that way.
As you were talking about both looking for the guy's behavior across the site, I kind of I got the idea of defensive driving. You're like looking ahead to see if someone breaks, and if they break, but you don't take that cue, that could end in disaster. Sounds like the sound like soft skills in a sense are very proactive.
Yeah, and particularly when you think about just focusing on this notion of recognizing people's state of mind, what's going on with them emotionally, it's just like what you described. If you don't pay attention to the signals down the road, or 500 yards ahead of you, and you're going to crash. And that crash may just mean that other person's going to get more upset. They're going to be more resistant to you. You're not going to have an opportunity to move in a positive direction, move a relationship forward. Because again, at the end of the day, it's one of the things I say quite often. At the end of the day, every business, every industry, whether it's for profit, charity, community, or otherwise, every business has people that they serve. In business, as a contractor, we call them customers. We may call them parishioners or community members, but we serve them as an entity, as a business. So we are all, even if it's about building things. Like people say, oh, I just build stuff. I don't do that. This stuff doesn't matter. I just build things. Well, no, you do build things, but in order to do that, you are demonstrating your interest in this customer. You serve them. They're people. So you need to be aware of that. And if you are aware of that, then things can go much, much better, because at the end of the day, since every business is a people business. Every business is about providing a service, whether it's the product delivered or it's the labor and personnel delivered. Whatever it may be, we're in the service business. And if we want to continue to be successful in the service business, we need to build relationships. Going back to my analogy to soft as steel, soft skills help you build long-standing, enduring relationships with people, because that's what business is all about. That's what anything is all about that involves serving someone else.
So, sounds great, Dennis. But maybe you were just born with soft skills. Like, did you just come out of the womb knowing these skills and knowing how to use them effectively?
No, no. We're born with a lot of things that are the function of the DNA of both of our parents. So the beginning of the wiring process of our brain starts at birth, as we all understand. That's why some of us are taller, thinner, shorter, have blue eyes, brown eyes, and it goes on and on
Some
and
of
on.
us talk with a very unique voice because of birth too.
You talked about a speech, but I haven't noticed it much yet. Because obviously you're very relaxed and enjoying this conversation and asking me all these difficult questions. But but no, the short answer is that I didn't even know that there was such a term as soft skills, truthfully, until probably 16 or 17 years ago, around the age of 50. That was kind of like one chapter closed and another chapter opened, where I started to be more and more curious and learning more and more about things that had to do with people. It would be now 2015. One of the areas that I've developed a lot of interest in. I'm not a scholar in any regard on any of these subjects. I just am interested and curious and learn more, and I share what I learn with others. And that's what the context of why I wrote the book and what that's all about. This is not an expert work. This is not a scholarly work. This is intended to be me sharing what I've learned with others in a book that is very conversational. That's how I would describe what I've accomplished with this book. So when you think about people stuff, it was 2015, so just 6 years ago. Whereas I was walking down the concourse in an airport and glancing over at one of the bookstores, I happened to notice a book up on the shelf. It wasn't my book because I hadn't written it yet. So I thought you were going to ask, did you really publish a book in 2019? Yeah. So no, but it was a book, and the book was entitled Emotional Intelligence 2.0. So when I saw that title, emotional intelligence, I had begun to be curious of learning more about that. But when I saw the 2.0, what that said to me, again, I'm not a scholar. I don't learn. My best way of learning is with my ears. I'm not an avid reader. I don't read a lot of books. I listen to them, and I'm good at listening to people, hearing what they're saying, and be able to help us move ahead on an agenda or solve a problem. So when I saw the 2.0, that immediately said to me, this is going to be straightforward, simple to understand, and a quick read. Now, it was straightforward, it was simple to understand, and it was a relatively quick read. So that became the source of my thinking and further learning about emotional intelligence. So that's how I got to that. Now it was years earlier, probably by 5, 6, or 7 years earlier, that I first met Steve Farber, and I met Steve because I saw his book on a shelf. And I picked it up and I read it. Now, that was a quick read. That had a tremendous impact on me, and it continues to this day to do so.
Which of his books did you read first?
The first one was The Radical Leap.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's the book where he introduces his 4 principles of leadership, which I think serve us well. He also introduced the quotable phrase that I use constantly. It's my mantra. I think about it every day, particularly as I begin to engage with people that I have relationships in my business, etc. And that is, do what you love. You probably fill in the blanks. In the service of people who love what you do. Do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. That's an infallible logic. It's infallible. If you buy into the notion of what love is all about. And some people kind of, they do that's that mushy gushy stuff. That's, kissy huggy, but it's, Steve does a wonderful job in exposing how to understand it better in the storytelling style of his first book, and he just carried that on to his other work. But it's the pulse. Or I should say, it's the beating heart, that strength of heart that gives people the courage to do the things they need to do to be great leaders. Because again, his body of work is about leadership, about mentoring. He calls it Greater Than Yourself. And then most recently, as everybody knows, he wrote a book entitled Love is Damn Good Business. And I absolutely agree with that. So those two books, Steve's first, followed by the book on emotional intelligence. And there have been others. There's a book called Mindset by Carolyn Dweck that helped me learn more about what mindset is all about. And so I just accumulated these learnings and shared them with people. I wasn't born with it, but I will say this, that there was probably some genetic component in what has become a fairly good ability to communicate. I'm generally considered to be a pretty good communicator. And that there was a genetic component of that, and I got the genes from my father. And so that's, when people look at me, they see my father in terms of my visual appearance. I look a lot like him. He's passed away many years ago when I was just beginning college, actually. But he was one of the things he did in our church community was he was the principal of the public school. They call it the CCD program, the public school children's religion classes that they would have on Sunday mornings or Saturday mornings. He was the principal of that, and he was the one who was chosen every year at Easter to read the long form of something that's called the Passion. It's the story of the crucifixion of Christ. So I'm not getting, this is not a religious reference. It's just, a contextual thing. So I may have a little DNA component of my speaking abilities, but everything else is stuff that I've learned. And when I began to learn it, it made sense to me. And I know from my experience right up to this moment, that soft skills make the difference. They are a difference maker in people's lives, both in work and personally as well.
Speaking of inspirational stories and how we pass stuff on to others, like your dad has imparted great communication skills onto you. Deborah Sweezy had a stroke a few years ago, and is now, instead of moping around, she's now inspiring others to live the best lives and move forward. Great to see you, Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
So
I guess is that pretty much it?
Yeah, no. So, So the one of the things about soft skills is, I mean, at least for me, I find myself reading books about them and going, yeah, yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh, yes, obviously. But then sometimes I get back into my real life and the stresses of work and personal life come up. And when the stress comes up,
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes forget about the skills. Like let's take humor for instance. Like a lot of us can be humorous when things are going really good, but say there's something really stressful at work. Do we feel like being humorous? So
That,
so
yeah.
how do we I guess my question is how. So I'm just going to keep asking this question for the rest of the hour, and you won't have a chance to respond. I'll just keep asking it in different ways.
Okay.
No, no, seriously, how do we remember to use soft skills even in stressful situations?
Well, yeah, it's the recognition that what soft skills are is is you.
Mm,
You are you. Every person is a person that possesses soft skills that has qualities, the things that people see in them, the things that people hear from them, that allow those. Amen. Thank you, Deborah. That's what soft skills are. So it starts with accepting the notion that there's a difference between soft skills and hard skills. And let's just it just and in the work world where most of us spend a lot of our time in business relationships, and delivering service, delivering product, etc. So if we spend a lot of time there, then what we have to recognize is we have to we have to be willing to describe ourselves or understand ourselves in terms that refer to our qualities. And if it's difficult to do that, there are tools to help. I mean, just like there are tools that you can help do a lot of mechanical things, and some tools are better than other. But one of the things that I say, and I've just begun as an example, a coaching engagement. And one of the first things that I'm having the individual I'm coaching, a senior level person in an organization, as I've asked them to take three assessments,
mm,
published assessments.
mm,
One deals with emotional intelligence,
mm,
another deals with their behavioral style, and the third is a 360 assessment, which you probably, I'm sure you're familiar with the idea of a 360 assessment. Just get, you get ratings from people that are your
oh,
peers, your supervisors, et cetera, et cetera. And so, and the way I describe the results of that is, as I say, now we have a set of facts. Let's see what the facts tell us. And
mm,
so you can read it, and I've been using something called the DISC profile, just one of a number of them. It happens to be one of the
mm,
more popular ones, the DISC behavioral assessment, and I'm using this in classes with the tough guys you're describing earlier in the construction industry,
mm,
superintendents and foremen. I mean, tough characters. If I sent you a picture of
mm,
my last class, you would say they all look like they just got out of prison. And it's something, and they didn't. They're incredible people, but you look at the pictures, oh my God, that's Dennis right there in the middle. Look at the rest of those people. They're big, they're tough looking. They do this assessment, and I asked them in class, so Jason, you did the assessment. What did you think of the results? And so you said to me, I don't, you just kind of hemmed and hawed for like 30 seconds. I said, well, listen, let me ask you a question. Do you have a significant other or a spouse at home? He said, yeah, I'm married. I said, did you show her that report that you just said was? He said, yeah, I showed her. So what did she say? Oh, she said it described me perfectly. So so here's the point. There are a number of those types of tools that you can do an assessment to assess your communication style, your problem solving style, just all kinds of useful data points, to put it in those terms. And so that becomes the foundation to help you focus in on both the strengths and also the things you have an opportunity to work on. And so, it really takes, the interest and commitment of an individual to want to develop themselves. Everybody, everybody can get better. Everybody can improve and reduce weak aspects of their personality or their approach to doing work. Every person can use their strengths in a more positive way. All they need is to accept that this describes me. This is helpful because I couldn't quite put it into words myself, but this makes sense. And one of the things I did in the book was I asked the people I interviewed, I asked them, if I were to ask someone who's known you for a long time to describe you, what would they say? And so that some of their thoughts are shared in the book. But inevitably, if you were to do that, any person were to ask someone that's known them for a long time, how would you describe me in words? And just write it down. Don't tell me what you're going to write down, but just write it down, and maybe I'd like to talk to you about it. Inevitably, what would happen is that in every situation, some of the things they wrote down, it might be the first 1, 2, or even 3 points that they wrote down. Say just as many things you can think of would be related to the role they fill, the function they have, the job they have. But inevitably, after 1, 2, or 3 points, the things that are written down about them by someone else relate to their soft skills. Great team member, great communicator, caring individual, adaptable. Those are all qualities of a person. And again, the soft skills are the things that make you valuable and make you a person that people want to have a relationship with. And if you understand them, and if it's blurry at all, use any of these instruments that I've described. They're all very useful. That Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book, in the back of the flap of the book, they had a code for you to be able to go online and take an assessment and get a report that told you something about your level of emotional intelligence. So again, it's, work with facts. Facts are the number one means by which people are influenced is with facts on whatever the subject. So if you have some facts about yourself, it will influence you to recognize these are things that are good. These are things that I need to work on. And all you got to do then is put the energy into working on them. And that's where Carolyn Dweck's body of work around mindset steps in, because she talks about people having basically 2 different mindsets. One is called a fixed mindset, which is just what it sounds like. And the other one is referred to as a growth mindset. The growth mindset person is going to look at that report and say, I got to put together some activities that I can do to improve this, to work on this, to get this to be a strength, not to be something which will hold me back. I answered your question somewhere.
You did. What would you say to someone who doesn't want to take the assessments because they don't want to find out negative information about themselves and possibly feel bad?
I would say to them, if you predispose yourself to thinking that because it's negative, it's not negative, it's constructive, and don't feel bad. Feel like you have something that you can work on that can help you to be a better person. And who doesn't want to be better as a person? That's what I would say.
Another thing, this all ties together because in construction you build something from nothing, and then you're talking about the growth mindset, which involves continually building and adding on. So it all ties together. Speaking of construction, what was one of the favorite projects you ever worked on?
It wasn't a favorite project. It was a favorite role. Involved with a number of projects. I spent a few years of my journey going up on Sunday nights to Philadelphia from the Washington D.C. area, where I worked as a senior project manager for a general contractor. So when I talk to people in the construction industry about soft skills, I don't talk to them about it as somebody who's been doing soft skills their entire life. And think about there was it was such a great experience because I was the oldest member of the team of project managers, and so I fell into being kind of the mentor for at least the two youngest project managers, and I was able to practice some of the things that I believed about how people can work better together and improve, the day-to-day functioning of a team of individuals, and I was able to apply it in that setting successfully. And we had a really strong project team. We enjoyed each other. We served our client well, and I left that job only because I had an opportunity to move back to Maryland full time and have a job in Maryland, so that I would be able to have my younger son live with me through his high school years. And that was a gift that to this day is something that I cherish, that I was able to have that time with him in my house, he and I, and so that was the only reason I left the company I was with. It was a terrific company, great group of individuals in the Philadelphia office. It was my best working experience in my long career. And it was because of people stuff. Just to emphasize, it was because of people stuff. Um, they were the engineers. I'm an accountant by education and credential. These guys were engineers. They were very strong technically, but they also were willing to learn how to work together and deal with the soft skill stuff. Even though I wasn't calling it soft skill stuff then, because again, that wasn't in my active vocabulary. The term soft skills was not there. What was there was team dynamics, improve working together, communication skills, that kind of stuff.
So pausing to think for a sec here. So kind of an awkward pause here.
It's all right. Well, it's called it's
As
the awkwardly awesome podcast, so it couldn't be any other kind of a pause except an awkward pause, right?
yeah. So, I remember. So you make just such a good point of life about life. You didn't quit that job and position in Philadelphia because you disliked it or anything. You loved it, but sometimes we choose between things we love, and you chose the opportunity to have your son live with you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's a good example of having my priorities in the right order, for sure. And that's the way it felt to me at the time.
In your book, you mentioned humor as a
Mm-hmm.
soft skill.
Yeah.
How does humor help in a work environment?
Well, I mean, some of the stuff yeah, is pretty obvious. Having a sense of humor and being able to bring that as an ingredient into the dynamic of a team is beneficial to the general tone of how people interact with each other. As long as the humor is respectful and appropriate, its effect is to take what might be at the moment either a quiet, a stressed, or some other kind of an awkward moment, and allow people to relax from it or into it rather by simply being able to smile or let out a little bit of a laugh in response to someone's attempt at humor. I use humor. Well, I haven't done much in this interview, but well, maybe a little bit. Well, there was that one. Never mind. But I think humor. Well, let me say it a different way. Humor for me is a recognition of the fact that every breathing moment of my life does not have to be serious and purely functional. And productive and all those kinds of things. There's always time for a smile, for a glib comment, or for some laughter. There's always time for that, and I find time for that as much as I can because, since I'm not a highly educated and really smart guy, I need to fill in the blanks with humor. So I do that, and we're all just human beings, aren't we? I mean, one of the things that I've talked about, you've heard me talk about it. It's an important ingredient in the event that you and I are going to be part of in February. Is this whole notion of recognizing differences in a positive, sensible way, with the question being, what's one thing that you and I and every other person that we meet have in common with one another? And the answer to that question is that we're different from each other. That's a common ingredient, not something which is a basis for viewing people differently, not a basis for not including people, which touches on the largely used word now and necessarily used, which is inclusion. Or if you go a little further into some of the more complicated things that have cropped up or popped up or come up like rocket ships in the last 2 years as a result of the pandemic, and that is social justice. Again, the view that we have of ourselves. And the view we should have of others is to say that we're all different from each other, and learning about those differences can be a very rewarding experience. But in business, when you're hired at a company and added to a team of individuals, you don't get to screen them; they don't get to screen you. You have to begin immediately as you onboard. You have to begin immediately to try to get to know these people, and they at least if the leadership is thinking in a positive, sensible way in this time of inclusion, in particular, as society continues to evolve with the two newest generations that have come into the workforce. If the leadership is seeing and headed in the right direction, and expressing the right vision, then what's going to be happening is that people will be talking to each other. They'll be asking questions of one another. They'll try to understand each other. Because if you can understand first yourself, which is my data point thought earlier, if you can't put words to describe yourself on a piece of paper fairly readily without the benefit of that, get the help yourself. And so and then when you have that, then by learning more about yourself, that was my first point. And when we set up this conversation, learning more about yourself puts you in a position to be able to be better at trying to get to know other people. Make sense? So and again, humor, like Deborah's saying, finding humor has made my 40-year nursing career so much less stressful. Absolutely. And again, not to speak directly to Deborah, but I think your comment is a beautiful one. I mean, the whole idea that some of us are in roles or in jobs or in positions where we see horrible things every day. Again, all the stories about the medical profession over the span of this pandemic, they were seeing death every day. And some might say, well, there's nothing funny about that. Well, there isn't anything funny about that. But again, among the living, having the opportunity to find humor in something, to say something funny, to make a little comment about someone in a proper place, in a proper context, just to relieve the stress, the pain, the unhappiness. It's absolutely necessary to normal day-to-day living, and even in the worst of times, which again, in many ways, we're still in with this pandemic.
This is to your point. Your point about how important soft skills are, like, and so many companies are struggling to retain employees, and Deborah says, I left working the ER making great money to be around a better environment of nurses.
Yeah, I applaud that. It makes again, that makes total sense to me immediately. I've been in many conversations with people that have said to me, I was making really great money, but I was miserable. And there are two fundamental parts of that equation. One part that equals misery has to do with the person who's feeling miserable. The other has to do with the environment and the people that they're involved with. I mean, we've heard, again, we hear terms like toxic work environment or unnecessary workplace stress. I mean, the environment, is something that can either be motivational or demotivational. And if you're with a great group of peers or colleagues, and I'll be very, very simple to say it this way: you may be making less money, but your level of satisfaction and your degree of happiness, and your good feeling when you go home at the end of the day, is priceless. And I always like to say that the people that have that keep in mind, and particularly as I think and talk to younger generations, if they can adopt this framework, or I should say this lens that Steve Farber provided us in his first book back in 2010 or so, which is to do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. Doing what you love doesn't mean every day is a great day at work. Doesn't mean that some days don't absolutely suck, that nothing good happened. But it's about your calling, what it is that you're doing, and again, it could be something that has nothing to do with making money. So you could take that statement, do what you love, in the service of people, and you may be doing some volunteer work that is incredibly rewarding for you, and you're being thanked left and right for all the good work you've done. And you also have a job, and you like that job, and maybe you don't love it, but you like the job. It pays your bills. But where you get your joy is in this charitable endeavor where you don't make a dime, but but you love doing it because you're serving people. So it's very easy to see the idea of service when you're dealing in that setting, and that's often where people ultimately find their calling. Now, I feel blessed for myself that when I turned 60, I made the pronouncement upon being fired from a job. The first time I'd been fired from a job by a person to this day is a good friend of mine, a very good friend. I was fired for the right reason. And fundamentally, as I wasn't doing the job. They wanted me to be more of a salesperson, and I'm not necessarily a salesperson, or at least I don't view myself that way. But the next morning, I literally woke up in the hotel. I was out in Los Angeles. They flew me from the East Coast to the West Coast to fire me. It was a nice plane ride. I got miles. I got Delta miles. So it was good from that standpoint. See, there's an example of humor. All right, so I just needed to point that out because nothing else I've said has been humorous at all. But my point here is that so I woke up the next morning, and I basically just had a conversation with myself, which is very interesting at times. But the gist of it was that I realized that morning that what I need to do in order for me to be happy is I need to try to help people better understand themselves and how to build a relationship with other people. And I pronounced that at that moment as my calling. And the reason I pronounced it as my calling is that in the week preceding that, I bought a book and read a book to talk about your calling and how you determine that something is your calling. So I had done some prep work, but I didn't have that thought until the outcome, which I thought was going to happen, wasn't sure. I was fairly certain I was going to get fired, but it wasn't 100%. But when that happened, I slept well that night, got up in the morning, and I made that decision, and that's what I'm doing today. I've been following my calling, and I'm staying true to that.
Wow, that's such resilience. The morning after you got fired, you determined a new direction for yourself, and you started following it.
Exactly.
Speaking
Oh, and
of,
by the way, one of the people that I called within the first few days after that
wasn't me.
No, it wasn't you. It was Steve Farber.
Yeah.
So again, he's been in places of great interest, and I appreciate the way you characterized that morning. And yeah, Deborah, I agree. Extra mommy time is really important. I'm delighted having a nice person involved in this conversation has been great.
At least one nice person.
Well, yeah. No, but what I see, I lost my thought. Give me a second, I'll recover it. I don't remember what it was. All right, continue. Next question.
Thank you. So speaking of new beginnings, 2022 is almost here. What three things will you invite the listeners and me also to do to develop to build expand the foundation of the soft
Yeah.
skills we already
Yeah.
have.
Well, I'm gonna turn. Notice I'm turning here. Let me move over. I'm gonna turn to the other screen over here. I'm gonna read the three things that I offer to you regarding this in anticipation of of our conversation. I think you'll see this will fit the bill. Number one, the person you understand the least about may be you. So learn as much as you can about yourself. This is
Mm-hmm.
number one. And that's where those assessments come in. You can also do it by asking people that know you well. Again, you do your own 360. Just identify people. So listen, I want you to just write down some thoughts, about, I mean, I got like three questions, and you can do your own ready mix 360 and gather some very interesting facts. But do that. Be factual in terms of getting words to describe yourself. Don't rely on yourself solely to do that. Um, uh, Number two, who you are and what you do is important in many endeavors, obviously. That's the reason you get hired for a job. But how you are, which is about the soft skills, be more and more curious about how you are, because that's more important, and it extends to all parts of your life. So that's where recognizing, what people see when they see me and hear me. I want them to see someone that they want to have a relationship with. So what do
Mm-hmm.
I need to do to make that happen? Do I need to recognize that at times I may come across as being too terse, too quick to the point, because of my behavioral style. And again, here's where those assessments are so valuable, because again, one of the things we do with ourselves is that when we recognize that there's something that we don't like, we feel bad about it. You said it earlier. Again, and so you feel guilty, and that just hampers you from
And
more and
there, and
more.
thereby actually goes what
Yeah,
Will
yeah,
say.
yeah. Well, you shouldn't be scared, Deborah. But and the last thing, and this is a phrase that I brought into my vocabulary. Um,
Okay.
do something different. Uh, Look for opportunities every day. Experiencing your life at home and your community at work is about making choices. So what you say or don't say and what you do or don't do are those choices. And doing something different may seem risky, like asking people what they think of you or what your qualities are, more to the point, but
Mm,
that's not a bad thing. So
mm.
learn more about yourself. Um, Recognize that people see you through your words and your actions. So that's the how. It's about how you are when you're interacting with people is hugely important. And then lastly, do something different. Be willing to take some risks in building relationships.
So
Um,
you make this easy because you keep setting me up for um the next question. Thank you. But so imperfect best to me means we go for our dreams, and but then when we make a mistake, something doesn't go away, we use that as inspiration to continue moving forward instead of quitting.
mhm.
What does doing your imperfect best mean to you?
To me, it means the simple recognition that perfection is not something that's achievable. Number one, we are just human beings, um,
Mm,
and we are going to make mistakes. We are going to experience failure, and the only challenge that we need to try to incorporate more into our mindset, that growth mindset I talked about, is that when we make a mistake, we need to try to understand what we can do differently so that mistake doesn't repeat itself. These are common thoughts. But on the idea of failure, sometimes when we fail, as I failed at that job, and the consequence was that
mm,
I got fired. But
mm.
that failure then led me, and I appreciate again the way you characterize it, because one of those qualities that is so significant, and people are so afraid of the notion of being resilient and what that means. Some people say, "Oh, resilience, you mean so if I did a really crappy job, I just got to forget about it and just go on and not care about that." That's not what resilience is. You still have to process you have to process the feelings you had that cause you to feel like you failed, or to feel badly or otherwise, and then resilience is about the way and the amount of time it takes you to get back on course, or to get back on the path if you've knocked yourself off. That's, to me, that's what resilience is.
Just briefly, because you could still be spending your time mad that you got fired that day, and that could be your life. But instead, you've set off on this brilliant other trajectory of helping other people, of writing other books. Up to the cheek, Dennis. Up to the cheek.
Is that better?
Yeah.
That's true. Because here's my last thought, and because I'm sure we could probably go on for another 2 hours, but this is not intended to be New Year's marathon interview. But let me leave with this last thought, which is, again, one of the kind of the fundamental beliefs that I have, and that is that I firmly believe that things that happened yesterday can't be undone. Things that happen tomorrow, you may have an idea about what they are, but none of those things may pan out. So all you have is right now. Just focus on right now. Don't forget. Don't forget about yesterday, because again, if it included failure, disappointment, a mistake, or what have you, then the takeaway has to be something that you learn from it. And if it's something that's a significant mistake, a significant failure, then the learning process may take you for some time to work through. But your attitude has to be that I need to try to understand what happened, and if it's part and parcel of my ability to be of service to people, to fill my job, my role, et cetera, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do to improve, to get better.
Last two things. Dennis, this is how people get a hold of you?
No, that's how they can get a hold of that Dennis Duran. My website is Dennis Duran Speaking. Okay. Dennis Duran Speaking. And so can you correct that, or is this?
I'll
fix that.
I'll correct it. This is about continuous improvement.
Exactly.
Dennis, and I'm improving right now.
Yes, and I recognize that, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
While you're doing that, I will say that if you visit that website, you'll be able to find you'll be able to download at no cost to you as a visitor a workbook that was taken out of my full book. It's downloadable into a PDF. You can register for my weekly audiograms that last about 90 seconds. You can also click on my YouTube link and view the first 23 of those audiograms if you want to listen to them. And you can also get on my mailing list, so those audiograms come to you in your inbox. And I'd be delighted if you do that. But that is the website right there, DennisDuranSpeaking.com.
Well, as you say, Dennis, we could talk for 3 more hours. You have so much wisdom to share. Thanks for being on the path you're on. Continuous improvement is challenging at times, but you are doing it, man, and you're inspiring and helping so many others. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Jason, it's a pleasure to know you. Thank you very much for having me as your guest.
Well, wasn't Dennis great? I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Oh gosh, love talking to Dennis. And I didn't do Dennis's intro, but it's too late now. So we'll just going. Oh, we'll do it really quick. This is really, really awkward.
Today's guest, Dennis Duran.
And yes, I should have done that at the beginning of the show. That's completely out of order, but so now we'll have the outro. Have a great day. Bye. in broadcast. We're ending broadcast. We're back, but I'm ending broadcast. So stay, Dennis. I'm just ending broadcast. Say bye to people. Wait, bye.
Bye.